unfortunately, the band feel the same way. Differences. And really, I mean, so I was actually trying to produce two bands at once. Half of them and the captain wanted to do something entirely different. So it was not an easy period. But at least it didn't last very long. With them, you know, I can remember saying to the captain after we'd done 2 takes or something, saying, it's good, do you want to run it again? And he went, nah. And you know, you'd have to go, yeah, okay, that's me.
Okay, so now wrapping up with the Floyd aspect here, if you're having dinner with someone that you know, and the conversation gets a little loose, and somebody out there, if they casually employ the cliche of the glory days of your life, the Pink Floyd's glory days and stuff like that, that's a kind of a loaded term in of itself. But if someone did say that, when would that be?
Well, I think it comes back to the sort of, which period did I like best or whatever. And the answer is there isn't a clear designation, because again, just that whole thing in the very first year of the first year with Glory Days in a way, because suddenly this I can't overemphasize how special it was to be a working band and to actually have people paying you to play, even if they sometimes didn't like it, which did happen. That was really special. But then right at the other end, there were the stuff, the division band, till the day, which were terrific because the opportunity to play enough to get better, I mean, for the show to get better. And the big regret, I say big regret, when I look back, I think what's a real shame is that we didn't tour things like Dark Side for longer. I mean, being, in hindsight, what would have been great would have been when Dark Side was released, we should have taken the next year just to tour the show. But we were so, it was understood that what you did was you went back into the studio and made the next record. Well, actually, we haven't got anything ready to go. We should have just said, no, we're not. We're going to take a year off and play some more. And I think we'd have then, when I say developed, I think we'd have developed the show further, which would have been a nice thing to do, and hopefully would have filmed it, which, one of the great regrets now is we have no film of any of the Dark Side shows. At the time, they were fairly groundbreaking. We had crashing planes and lasers and film and all the rest of it.
Well,
and I loved it.
Some loud explosions, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, the last question I'll ask you is one that I'm sure everyone wants to know the answer to, and I'm sure you ask this nearly every day by people that you don't know, and is what is the status of Pink Floyd at this very moment?
Well, it's dysfunctional. There are no plans to do anything. I mean, and I have to be very careful with this because at the back of my mind is the possibility that maybe we could do another, a sort of development of Live Aid, really. But, I think the one thing that might make it happen would be to do something, as with Live Aid, that you do something for the right reasons. I don't think we'll work together again for money. And David, when he's asked, he goes, no way, never will do it. But that's what he said for Live Aid. So you never know. But my sort of, I suppose, what I would like would be to find that we would do something. I don't think we'd ever go back in the studios, but I think we would play live for the right reasons. If we could do something that truly worthwhile, that we could do that other people couldn't for some reason, then I hope we would sort of rise to the occasion.
That sounds great. Well, I'm sure that all of us are on the basis of these new releases can be listening to all the recordings, and it's been an impressive array. And maybe if you don't go back to the studio, you got nothing to lose, right? We'll make a bad one, which is fantastic. Why don't we now? I'm sure there's some questions to be had here. Let's see. I want to go first with the guy behind the guy in the white shirt, because his was the first hand I saw. So could you stand up maybe and say a question?
Mr. Mason, I just want to say, it's a great joy to see you and hear your words after what seems like quite a long time since you were here in Los Angeles with Roger and Hollywood Bowl. My question is, following the Live Aid performance, the reunion, long-awaited reunion that thrilled fans worldwide, yourself, Mr. Waters, Gilmore, and Wright, you did a handful of shows with Mr. Waters. Mr. Gilmore and Wright did their On an Island tour together, but I haven't heard of any further collaboration between you and Mr. Wright. And I was wondering if, and I apologize if this is a government question, but if you had any studio time together or had a live performance following Live Aid with Mr. Wright.
I think the answer is I did a show with Dave and Rick at the Albert Hall thing, when he was doing his on an island tour. So the answer is yes, I've done a little bit with Dave and Rick when they were together. But of course, with the sad passing of Rick, I mean, we're not going to get back there again.
Okay, fellow in the white shirt, since I pointed you out before.
All right. Yeah, in the recent issue of Record Collector, you state that you've received a fan's bootleg record collection from a widow. Since you also state in that interview that nobody really saved anything, is there any chance of reaching out to fans for some of the stuff that you say has gone missing?
Well, I'm not sure that stuff's gone missing. You're quite right that I left yesterday, Friday. On Wednesday, I was in the office looking at this stuff that had arrived from Southampton, and it's extraordinary. There is so much stuff there, and I think he must have collected virtually every show we'd ever done that got the bootleg version. And I will listen to some of that. And I have to say, we've never had a proper fan club, and I think we always felt that it was something that we didn't particularly really want to do, and I think it was the right decision, because I think if you do have fan clubs, then you have to look after them properly, and we would never have done that. And so we're not very good like that. Short attention span. Great for 6 months, and then but there is a lot of stuff out there, and we have actually had help from various different people. It's a guy called Vernon Fitch, who used the Pink Floyd archives. And I have to say, I do sometimes get onto Vernon and say, Vernon, where were we then, and who did what, and who was that person, or whatever. So we are aware of fans and that they do have sometimes information or things that we don't. And I've been doing quite a lot of trying to find out what we've got in the way of film and video and so on in particular, rather than just music. And it's amazing what comes up the woodwork. And anyone in that sort of position, thank you very much.
Because Vernon and I went to college together, I guess so funny.
Really?
Yeah. Over here?
I was just wondering, when searching the archives for unreleased material for the new reissues that are coming out, did you come across any audio or video material from your North American tour of 1975 or your world tour of 1977?
Almost nothing. I mean, again, the problem is that the only times we really recorded properly with multi-track live was when we actually knew in advance we were going to put something out. And of course, something like the sort of Wish You Were Here tours, the 75 and the Animals tours, we were introducing the new studio album at the time, so it never occurred to us that we'd want to record, make a live recording of it, because it was all sort of too new at the time.
Yeah.
So that I think, why there is absolutely, it just isn't anything from that period.
So nothing at all has come up at all?
Nothing at all.
Ah, that's disappointing.
I feel the same.
Why don't we get to the fellow in the back with the white shirt right there? Yeah, you, please.
My name is Scott Stevenson, and I wanted to ask you about that Big Fish Sports album. I love that project. Talk a little more about working with Carla Bley, and specifically about a hilarious song on that album I've always thought called Booty Music.
The reason I ended up working with Carla was through Robert, because that was the big connection. Robert was the sort of the point of contact for all those sort of American jazz players, and it was through Robert I met Carla and Mike Mantler, and then Mike came to the UK, and he needed some help with an album he was making, and he wanted me to come in and help mix it. And so that was the sort of connection. And then what actually happened was that when we were doing whatever record deal, sort of re-signing with EMI sometime around the making of the Wall, the new contract gave us all the opportunity to make a solo record. And I had no intention of doing a real solo record, because there's a limit to how many people want to hear a 40-minute drum solo. Even I get bored with that. And so I really loved Carla's music, and so I talked to Mike and talked to Carla. Really, it's really Carla Bley record, sort of driven by me. And most of it, there's Robert was involved in it actually. But there's a track on, who's the girl? I'm trying to remember the girl who sings on there. There were some great players. Steve Swallow was an absolute joy to work with. He's a bass player who works regularly with them. And for me, again, it's this thing, it's an education working with people like that, because they have a completely different way of working. I mean, working with Mike made me have to learn how to read a drum part, because music is so complex some of the time. You can't remember it all, and you just need to be able to see it on paper and go, oh yeah, no, it's that.
Thank you.
Great. How about you over there? Miss?
Hi. First I want to express my honor, because Pink Floyd has changed my life in a good way.
Always worried.
I'm very, very happy to see you like personally. And I really want to ask about, can you tell some your personal experience from playing at the club before in the 60s, like maybe some crazy stories or something like that.
Well, the UFO Club was interesting and actually very sort of critical in our development. I get the impression a lot of you know my entire life story backwards anyway, so I'm not quite sure how much detail to go into it. But when we started, we initially played at a place called House Gardens, but from that we started to get a regular booking at this club called the UFO Club, which was the beginning of the sort of London Underground, the equivalent of Haight-Ashbury, and it was, for us it was the real launch pad. EMI heard about us playing UFO, people came down to see us, Paul McCartney came to see us there, which was the sort of ultimate honour. And it was interesting because it was not only a sort of music venue, I said venue, no, it wasn't only a music sort of occasion, it was all about this sort of idea that this was, so there'd be poetry readings, there'd be some dances, and there'd be other things going on as well. And in a way it was a wonderfully sort of naive at one level, because it was interesting how once all this new music that was coming out of this sort of this environment, and that's the soft machine, and then even the established bands suddenly started wearing New Morris print trousers and perming their hair and wearing beads and things. Suddenly, how that just swamped the whole thing, and drove all the poets and dancers out. And it was sort of brutal in a way. But it was a weekly, it was a club that only occurred on a Saturday night, and only occurred after midnight because there was a cinema next door that couldn't tolerate loud music. It was an alternative soundtrack to whatever was playing. But it was quite special at the time, and the very first English light shows were there. It was developed by the people who were publishing the International Times, which was.
Didn't I see there's a DVD movie called like the Dream, Technicolor Dream, or whatever like that?
No, that was different. Yes, there was a film that was. Let's Make Love in London. No, that was Sunny Palm. Maybe. There was a film related to UFO. Was it Graham Whitehead?
It's Peter Whitehead.
Peter Whitehead.
You got some fans here.
Why doesn't someone else get up here? Tell us all about it.
Okay.
But the Technicolor Dream was later. That was at the Palace.
Yeah, because I know you were interviewed, and I think that it was about the International Times, so they found the hockey or whatever.
Yeah.
That's right. Sorry.
Well, we're fellow with the big stick. What about it? Excuse this person.
There's someone whose life has changed in bad ways.
I think the song "Point Me in the Sky" is not as bad as Roger wants to say. And it's one of the really good ones that never quite made it out. But the question I have, "The Great Big in the Sky," was that written for Claire Torrey, or was it written and then you were looking for a singer to try to fill that one? And one quick one, which is a yes or no: how did you come up with all those beds for a Momentary Lapse of Reason album? And who had time to put them on that beach?
I don't think a yes or no answer. That was definitely Storm who came up with that, and Storm was very good at finding very cheap assistants. Most of my children have worked for him.
So it's not an optical illusion. Those are really all those beds on the beach there.
Yeah. This is even then was before all that digital Photoshop.
Claire Torrey?
Claire Torrey. Well,
Thank you.
the good news is that to some extent that question is answered with the new immersion version of Dark Side, because there's some tracks from 1972 played live, which include Great Gig without Claire and with a completely alternative part on top. And Claire was very much a sort of, I won't say an afterthought, but it was very, very much part of the studio development of the record. And she was brought in by Alan Parsons as a suggestion. It was a pretty vague brief even by the time Claire arrived in the studio as to what we really wanted her to do and what we were trying to achieve. I mean, I think probably all of us had a slightly different view of what was going to go on it. And Alan got it right by bringing Claire in, who did really a definitive job of it.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question, and then we'll move on. So this guy has such a grin on his face. Okay, so please ask a question.
Yeah, so when you were playing with the live Pink Floyd band, did you prefer playing with Gary Wallace or Willie Wilson?
Good question. It was so different. I mean, the thing is, the stuff with Willie was the board. So actually, we were playing a very, very specific part. The good thing about working with Gary is he's a very, very good player. And actually, I learned a lot from Gary. And whereas Willie was great to play with, was a very good drummer, but Gary is technically is really something else.
Very good. Folks, thank you very much for coming. I just wanted to let you know we'll be outside signing